It's about daylight. And all of a sudden, as one guy wrote, all hell broke loose. You know, where did these people come from? The farmers, there were 6 to 7 farms here on this property. And they knew the Union Army was here because they were up here at the landing. This is Pittsburgh Landing. A man named Pitt had a trading post here on the river, and the steamboats would stop, and all the farmers would bring their goods to be shipped here. Their cotton, their corn, whatever they're selling. They could take it down to the steamboat landing. Different boats would come by. They were all, and by the way, these boats were all filling up with wood. They were wood steamboats, burning wood. So he would sell wood, he would sell food, he would sell live animals even. So the farmers all knew the Union Army was here. They were camped right down there. But they had no idea the Confederates were hiding down the road here. So you can imagine the horror of being awakened at daylight with opening up of cannons and guns. And then I was telling them, there's a diary out there that I've read about, I haven't read it, of one of the children of a farm family that wrote it later, that they spent their entire day on that Sunday in their root cellar, afraid to come out because of all what was going on. And their home was just in shambles, of course. Bullet holes all the way through. So Shiloh means a place of peace. It's a biblical name. And it's America's first modern battle that the country learned about the horrors of war. Don't forget, there were people who thought this can't last 6 months, 7, 8 months. It was over. There were some groups that thought, we can't get there in time before they all whip all the Yankees and then we'll have to come home. Well, the horrors of war are going to be learned right here. It's a horrible thing. And Sherman wrote his wife that he felt he may not survive this battle. He said it's one of the worst he'd ever fought in, particularly the worst one in the West. And it's some important dates. February the 6th, Grant takes Fort Henry on the Tennessee River. February the 8th, Union gunboats appear in Florence. So up here on the Tennessee River is Fort Henry, keep going up the river, and 2 days later, gunboats are in Florence. All of a sudden, people in Florence are going, wait, what just happened? They're not even supposed to get here. And here they are in McFarland Bottom, literally. And so what you have here is, for the first time in American history, or maybe the Western Hemisphere, you have close to 100,000 people on the battlefield. Depending on what source you read, there's some information here. The Confederates have 40,335, roughly. The Union had 42,682, but 24,000 fresh troops arrived that night, pushing it well over 100,000. Never before had that ever happened in America. They heard the shelling in Florence. It was shaking the windows at First Methodist Church. They had no idea. Bright, sunshiny day, pretty. What is going on? I had a relative, and I think I may have told you this, that rode from up here on the Savannah Highway, not far, rode all day on his mule to come up here to see what was going on, got up here in the middle of the night, and got killed. And his wife never knew what happened to him until later when some members of the Army came by her place and said, oh, by the way, I saw him killed that night. So she didn't know what happened to him. So all of this is going on. So Johnston, General Johnston, the Confederate officer down here at the bottom, 59 years old, hero of the Mexican War. Grant is 39. And Grant was basically drummed out of the Army. We talked about that. He's in Ohio, he's selling hardware. And when the war broke out, he is asked to practice the local militia. And that's how Grant comes back into the military. You'd have never heard of him had it not been for this war, probably. And so this book, notice at the top of that page, on the first page, I'm using 2 sources. I highly recommend that book, Shiloh and Hell Before Night. That saying came from a Union sergeant who told his men, fill your canteens, you're going to be in hell before night and you're going to need the water. And that's the title of the book. And in the other book, of course, is the Civil War Narrative by Shelby Foote, one of my favorite authors. He was at Ole Miss. So we start here for a couple of reasons. General Sherman is just beyond this point. His camps are just beyond this point, facing south. They know that the Confederates, there's been rumor the Confederates are in Corinth. And Corinth is about 18 miles south of here. You know, that we could be down there in, what, 25, 30 minutes? It takes the Confederates over 2 days to get here. They're lost. This battle was supposed to have started on Friday afternoon or Saturday morning instead of Sunday. They're lost. They've got to move 40,000 plus men on narrow, mud-soaked roads, and they don't even get into place until like midnight on Saturday night, Sunday morning. And they're not even allowed to build fires. So they're sitting in the woods soaking wet, waiting for daylight to find out how far in here it takes them to find the Union Army. This is a start here because they're camped all around this church. And this is a replica of what they think the building looked like. It's one-room log house, church house. And it was a Methodist church. And it still is a Methodist church. And it still has a congregation in this building. But the graveyard predominantly is church people and community people. In fact, there was a little Baptist church inside the battlefield too at one time. It's not here anymore. This is the only church inside the grounds. We start here because actually by 7 o'clock on Sunday morning, the Confederates are running through here. Headed that way toward pushing the Union Army back. So we'll start and we'll drive around. Then we're going to make another loop and come right back very close to here because we got to pick up the rest of the story. So you can imagine charging headlong through these woods. Within 30 minutes, half of these guys are lost. Any of you ever been around black powder? You can't even see. When these guns go off, it's just like a big fog. You can't see, you can't hear, and the only way they had to communicate was by trumpet or bugle and drum. And all this is going on and you can't hear. So within 30 or 45 minutes, it's just like, one guy described it as two big monstrous beasts wrestling in these woods. And half the time, you don't know who's shooting at who. One guy said, I read this article, he said, I thought I was behind a really good cover, but in a few minutes I realized that they were hitting the stump I was behind, and I was hiding basically behind nothing because the bullets were just chipping away where he was hiding. And he found out that he was basically being shot by his own people. So there's no telling how much of that was going on in confusion. One of the things I found most interesting, but in a few minutes, the Mississippi unit lost 3/4 of their men in 30 minutes. The first opening 30 minutes, 3/4 of their men are dead or wounded. Because that's how you're walking right into the teeth of fire. As Confederates were coming in this direction, it's Sunday morning. Sherman's men are cooking breakfast. These guys have had nothing to eat since Corinth. They're stopping to eat Union food. It's breakfast, hey. It's right here. These guys have abandoned it. We're pushing them on. So a lot of commanders, they said, where are my guys? I thought we were charging. Well, they're back here having breakfast. Coffee and bacon and, you know. You can also almost imagine how a commander is about to pull his hair out because he has no control. It's a free-for-all. Within 30 or 45 minutes, it's an absolute free-for-all. Some guys, particularly the Union guys, are so surprised and shocked, they're running for their lives back that way, toward the river. Their gunboats are at the river down there at the landing. So it's amazing that Sherman was able to hold up as long as he did, delay until Grant came on the field. Grant's up at Savannah at the Cherry House, the Cherry Mansion, where he was wined and dined the night before, and people don't realize, or he didn't realize, Mrs. Cherry's brother was a spy for the Confederacy. And she was passing information to him because here's the Union commander right here in the dining room. So it's about 10 o'clock in the morning before Grant even gets up there. And when he gets up there to where we were at the river, thousands of his men are down on the riverbank cowering, afraid for their lives. You know, it's the end of the world. The sky, remember Chicken Little? The sky is falling, the sky is falling. And they're down there begging to go home. Put me on the boat. So all of this is going on, and Grant's trying to reorganize things. So it's an absolute horrendous scene, if you would, of literally blood and carnage. So